Look at your bank account right now. Whatever the number is, some part of you feels like it should be higher. And here's the strange part. If you got the raise tomorrow, the one you keep telling yourself would finally make things comfortable, that feeling wouldn't disappear. It would follow you, quietly, into the next tax bracket, and the one after that. You probably think feeling poor is about not having enough money. It isn't. And to understand why, you have to go back to a time before money existed at all, because the feeling is far older than the thing you blame it on. For more than 200,000 years, no human being on Earth felt poor, not because everyone had plenty, because there was no one to feel poorer than. The answer to when that changed, and why it now follows you everywhere, rewrites everything you think you know about your own ambition. Start at the beginning. For almost all of human history, our ancestors lived in small bands, 15, maybe 50 people, and in those groups, something existed that has almost completely vanished from the modern world: rough material equality. Anthropologists who study the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies find the same pattern again and again. There was no private wealth to speak of. When a hunter brought down a large animal, the meat was shared across the whole group. You couldn't accumulate much, because you carried everything you owned, and you moved with the seasons. There's a deeper reason the sharing was so strict. Many of these societies practiced what anthropologists call active leveling. They deliberately mocked anyone who started acting superior. A hunter who bragged about his kill would have it belittled on purpose to keep him in line. Standing out above the group wasn't admired. It was dangerous. Think about how completely backwards that is from the world you live in now. So for the vast majority of our existence, the comparison that torments us simply had no fuel. Everyone around you had roughly what you had. There was no gap to stare at. No one to measure yourself against and come up short. And then, about 12,000 years ago, something happened that broke this open forever. Farming. When humans started growing crops instead of chasing them, for the first time you could produce more than you needed today and store the surplus. Grain could be hoarded, land could be owned, and almost overnight, in the scale of human history, something appeared that had never existed before. Some people had dramatically more than others. Archaeologists can actually see this happening in the ground. In the oldest settlements, houses are roughly the same size. Then, layer by layer, over generations, the houses start to diverge. Some grow large. Some stay small. The grave goods tell the same story. Some people are buried with treasures, others with nothing. You are watching inequality being invented. One excavation layer at a time. This is the moment poor was born, not when people lost money, when it first became possible to have less than the person next to you, and to see it. But the gap alone doesn't explain the feeling. For that, you need to understand the machinery in your head that reacts to it. And that machinery turned out to be far stranger than anyone expected. In 1954, a psychologist named Leon Festinger proposed something that sounds obvious until you really sit with it. He argued that humans have no absolute sense of how well they're doing. None. We can only know by comparing ourselves to other people. You don't actually know if your salary is good. You can't. There's no internal gauge that reads enough, so your brain does the only thing it can. It looks around. It compares. And the comparison becomes your reality. There's a study that makes this almost painful to read. In 1998, 2 researchers at Harvard asked people to choose between 2 imaginary worlds. In the first world, you earn $50,000 a year, and everyone around you earns $25,000. In the second world, you earn $100,000 a year, double, but everyone around you earns $200,000. In raw terms, the second world makes you twice as rich. You can buy twice as much of everything. And yet, a large share of people chose the first world. They would rather earn less in absolute terms as long as they earned more than the people around them. Sit with that for a second, because it's one of the most revealing facts about human nature ever measured. People will choose to be genuinely poorer, less money, less buying power, a smaller life, if it means standing above their neighbors. The number was never the thing. The gap was always the thing. This is the ancient leveling instinct flipped inside out. The same brain that once policed equality now polices status. We didn't lose the obsession with where we stand in the group. We just pointed it in a new direction. And once you see that, a second piece of the puzzle clicks into place. Because there's a reason the wanting never stops, no matter how much you get. In 1971, two psychologists, Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell, gave it a name, the hedonic treadmill. The metaphor is exact. Picture someone running on a treadmill, sprinting, sweating, working as hard as they possibly can, and going absolutely nowhere. That's what we do with success. Something good happens, a raise, a bigger place, a better car. Your happiness spikes, and then, slowly, your brain does what it has always done. It adjusts. The new thing becomes the normal thing. Your baseline quietly resets, and you end up standing exactly where you started, already scanning the horizon for the next upgrade. Brickman put this to the test in a famous 1978 study, and the results still unsettle economists. His team interviewed major lottery winners, people who'd won fortunes, and compared them to people who had recently been paralyzed in accidents. Two groups at the absolute extremes of luck. A year out, the lottery winners were not meaningfully happier than ordinary people. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The winners reported taking less pleasure from everyday things. A good meal, a conversation, a quiet morning. The fortune hadn't just failed to make them happy. It had dimmed the small joys they used to feel for free. They had more, and it meant less. I find this genuinely hard to sit with, because it means the thing you're working toward right now, the number, the title, the house, will likely feel like nothing within months of getting it. Not because you're ungrateful, because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do across those 200,000 years. Never stay satisfied, always reach for more. The early humans who felt content, who had a full belly and decided that was enough, were outsurvived by the ones who always wanted a little more stored away for winter. We are the descendants of the restless ones. That hunger that won't go quiet when you finally hit your goal isn't a flaw in you. It's the inheritance that kept your ancestors alive. So we've had the gap since farming and the comparing brain since the dawn of our species. For thousands of years, these two forces existed, but they were held in check by one simple limit. The people you compared yourself to were the people you could actually see. Your village, your neighbors, people living more or less the way you lived. The comparison stung sometimes, but it had a ceiling. You might envy the richest family in town, but the richest family in town was still milling their own grain a few houses over. The gap was real, but it was small, and it was local. And then, about 15 years ago, we did something no human society had ever done. We handed nearly everyone on Earth a small glass screen. Now, the people you compare yourself to aren't your neighbors. They're the richest, most curated, most carefully filtered fraction of 8 billion strangers. Every time you open your phone, you are not seeing the world as it is. You're seeing its highlight reel. The vacations, the renovations, the watches, the wins, all polished and posted by people showing you their single best moment. Your comparison machine, the one Festinger described, the one built for a village of 100 people, is now being fed the top fraction of the entire planet, all day, every day. And your brain does not know these people are strangers. It evolved in a world where everyone you saw was someone you knew. So it processes them as your tribe, your reference group, the people you're supposed to keep up with. Measured against that tribe, you will always, come up short. There is no salary, no house, no achievement that wins a race against 8 billion highlight reels. This is why a doctor earning $300,000 a year can lie awake feeling like they're falling behind. They're not comparing themselves to the country, where they're near the very top. They're comparing themselves to the other doctors, the one with the bigger house, the second practice, the boat on the lake. The treadmill never stops, because there is always someone a rung higher, and now a glowing rectangle in your pocket will make absolutely certain you see them. Now, there's one honest exception worth being precise about. Money does buy real happiness in one specific situation. In 2010, the economists Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton studied this directly. They found that more money genuinely does improve your day-to-day emotional life, but mostly for people climbing out of hardship. When you're struggling to cover rent, struggling to eat, every extra dollar buys a real, measurable reduction in misery. Then, once your basic needs are met and the fear is gone, the effect flattens out. Each additional dollar buys less and less feeling. Money is extraordinary at removing the pain of not having enough. It is almost useless at manufacturing joy beyond that point. And we spend our whole lives chasing the second thing, long after we've already solved the first. So, when did humans start feeling poor? Not when we lost money. We started feeling poor the day we could first have less than the person beside us, and we have been feeling it ever since through 12,000 years of widening gaps carried by a brain that was built to compare and can never be switched off. You can't delete the treadmill. You can't turn off social comparison. These things are older than money, older than farming, woven into the oldest parts of who you are. But you can choose one thing. You can choose what you stand next to. The discomfort you feel was never really about what you have. It's about the reference point you've been handed. And for most of us now, that reference point is an algorithm designed to keep you scrolling by keeping you just slightly dissatisfied. Change what you let your brain compare against, and you change the feeling itself. Look up from the highlight reel of strangers, and the gap your mind keeps measuring quietly begins to close. So the next time you feel that pull that you don't have enough, the one that no raise has ever silenced, recognize it for what it is. It isn't the truth about your life. It's a 200,000-year-old survival instinct, born the day farming made one person richer than another, running now on a device built to exploit it. The feeling that you're poor was never about the money. It was about who you were standing next to, and that, at least, you can still choose.